Welcome to the Mold Matters Podcast. Whether you are looking for help recovering from mold illness or just want to learn more about creating a safe environment for your family, this podcast is the place for you.
Did you know the levels of some hazardous pollutants in indoor air have been found to be up to 70 times greater than in outdoor air? But who's monitoring that for you? Check out mypureproducts.net for the latest in monitoring devices and DIY mold test kits. Take control of your environment with mypureproducts.net.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mold Matters Podcast. Coming here from Utah with Mike Adams along my side. I'm Jeremy Evans.
Hey, Jer. This is Mike Adams.
Hey, Mike. Jeremy.
Good to see you. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Good to see you. We'd like to do another podcast here. We're always happy to do these as often as we can. Looking at the summer schedule, Mike, will I see you again?
No, probably not. Not
Okay.
for about a year.
Okay.
Looks like.
I looked at your schedule and thought, I'll see you maybe in July
Yeah,
for a minute.
my wife said we are ships passing in the night. That's all we are.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
how it was. This has happened before.
Yes.
I've gone months without seeing you, but it's okay. It's for a good cause, helping people with their mold. So I'll but yeah, we're trying to let's squeeze one in today before you leave tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then and actually before we get going, please remember to subscribe. Actually, I taught you the other day how to subscribe to a podcast.
Right. Now I don't remember what you said, but it's pretty simple.
Actually, I told you how to subscribe, and then you realized you already had subscribed. So you have subscribed before.
So accidentally subscribe, if you will.
Because
I've done it. Yeah.
It was your son's podcast. You hit
his other podcast?
You had
Yeah.
you just hit on the iPhone. You just hit
That's
the
right.
plus
Oh, okay.
sign, and it kind of it subscribes you.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, today, Mike, I'm going to defer to you a lot because we're talking about something that's a little more in your wheelhouse than mine. Although we did work together many years ago in a surgical center. Yeah. You hired me to help you clean a surgical center, and I know you've mentioned the story a little bit. I guess do we want to start with that story, or do you want to?
Well, I'll just briefly touch on it.
Okay.
So how we ended up doing a podcast for mold.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what was the joke I heard? I can't remember the joke now, but something about yada yada yada. Hitler was an art student, and we ended up with World War II.
Yeah, you're missing a lot of details.
A lot of details there.
Yeah. You're going to skip a lot of details.
Yeah. So anyway, I worked for the same company for 22 years. Could not stand working one more day for corporate America. And so I started a company. A lot of people know this story, but the idea of the company was going to be light maintenance on medium-sized buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Buildings that aren't big enough that they can afford a full-time building engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And so started this company. We picked up some banks, some medical clinics, some office facilities, and then one fateful day we picked up a surgical center, and we started doing their cleaning and their filters and their lighting. And then we got a call. They said, hey, we don't like the company that cleans our operating rooms. Would you consider taking that on?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was like, well, I know nothing about that at all, but I'll study up and try to figure out how to do it. And they said, no, we'll show you how to do it. And so we took it on. We ended up hiring. In fact, like you said, I asked you to come help out with that. So you drive up every night from, did you live in Salt Lake at the time? Provo, yeah. And
late night.
We'd put our scrubs on,
Yeah.
and wash our hands like we were doctors and go in and clean the operating rooms. So we started thinking about that this morning, and I wanted just to touch on the history of operating rooms because it's really not that old, a real operating room.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it goes back, operations, surgery in general goes back thousands of years.
That sounds kind of old.
Yeah, it's way older than my dad.
Okay.
Yeah. And, so the history of the operating rooms in all the different countries, it's really interesting. You should dive into it if you get a chance. But they did do one surgery that jumped out at us. What was that called, Jer? Do you remember?
Oh, F&E.
What the heck was that called? anyway, it's they basically just put a hole in your head.
Yeah, yeah, because it relieved pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of they didn't know how to handle a lot of head trauma, so apparently, if there was hematosis or even headaches or any kind of pressure, they found that if you puncture the skull, it actually relieved a lot of the pain and pressure. And you made a good point. You're like, well, of course, the original...
my headache's gone, but this other hole in the head really hurts.
Yeah, it was kind of diverting the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of that surgery, though. We should have had that written down.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is kind of interesting. I did mention that somewhere along the line, somebody had to have said to the doctor, "Doc, I need that surgery like I need a hole in my head."
Yeah, trephinations.
Trephinations.
Yeah, trephinations.
Yeah, trephinations. They're going to drill a hole in your head. Anyway, this goes back to, BC, 2000 BC. And then you can look it up on the internet. There's all kinds of really interesting things about surgery and surgical operating rooms. Nowadays they call them surgical suites, with the idea being that you need to do what they call terminal cleaning between each patient.
Terminal meaning comprehensive, or what is terminal?
I think that's what it is. It's just very comprehensive. You have to be so careful to not cross-contaminate to another operating room. And so when we did it, the site that you and I cleaned, Jer, did it have 4 operating rooms or 5? I can't remember.
I don't even remember now.
Yeah, it had a bunch.
Multiple.
Yeah, and you couldn't, for example, mop operating room number 1 and take that same mop into number 2.
Number 2, that's
right.
right.
Yeah, that's against the rules.
Yeah.
You couldn't carry any of your rags from one operating room to the next. So basically it's you clean that one and then throw everything away that you used to clean that one and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we used to get back to how we ended up doing mold batters, I was always concerned that how do we even know we're getting everything? And I know enough about staph infection and MRSA and things like that I felt really liable and responsible. So that's how we got interested in creating a vapor or a dry fog.
Yeah.
Long story short, we tried to market this idea to not only that surgical center, but to every hospital we could get to talk to us, and we got nowhere with it.
Yeah.
Even though it's an amazing process.
Well, can I probe you a little bit?
Yeah.
So, I've heard the story many times, and I know the answer, but I think it's instructive. So, when you're cleaning a surgical center or surgical suite, you always talk about how, we're doing nothing when we spray and wipe.
Yeah.
Or even the mopping, or a lot of these protocols that you actually wrote, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What this
not no offense.
No. Yeah. I'm not proud of that. But this particular surgical center, they said, no, we'll show you how to do it. They had nothing in writing. And there are, if you go on the internet, there are, certain things you have to do to terminally clean a surgical suite. But this particular place had nothing in writing. But as far as getting back to this is doing nothing, my point was, okay, one, we're using probably a very nasty Quat.
Okay.
That's going to kill the germs, but likely it needs to stay wet for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Before you do anything.
Yeah. So that rarely happens, right? Before you move on.
There's not enough time in a night to clean 5 operating rooms, even with 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
By spraying and leaving everything wet and then wiping it down.
Yeah.
Along with all the other stuff you have to do.
Yeah.
You're spraying, giving it a few minutes, and then wiping it.
I doubt a few minutes.
Yeah.
I bet you're just spraying and going.
Yeah.
That's what most people.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how many
nature
people
to do it that way. The nurses did it that way.
Yeah.
Nobody was leaving things for 10 minutes wet.
Yeah. No, they definitely not. And I'm surprised how many, because I was surprised myself when I learned this. But even your household cleaners, if you look on them, none of them say spray and wipe.
Spray and wipe. No.
2, 3, 5, 10-minute contact time before you can actually wipe.
Okay. Now here's the other crazy thing is just in the last few years, more and more has come out on what's called Quat loading on rags. If you use a cotton rag, which we did, remember those green cotton rags? And
we did a podcast on cotton versus microfiber.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you wipe with those green cotton rags, you're actually pulling the Quat back up into the rag to where it's not really doing anything.
Yeah.
So if you think that, well, I got a rag full of this Quat, it's wet, and I'm wiping things down, you're probably not applying any Quat to the surface because it's adhering to the
it's
rag.
attracting to the rag, not to the.
Right.
And that's the beauty of microfiber, right? It kind of it doesn't absorb the Quat,
Right.
and it keeps that electrical charge
Opposite. Yeah.
opposite, so
Yeah.
it attracts the microbe, not the Quat. Anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, we did it for a while, and that's what got us interested in dry fog. We couldn't get any traction with the medical world, and yada yada yada. Here we are on Mold Matters.
Well, you were actually just reading an article. Was it today? Yeah, today up in your office, and I peeked over your shoulder. But it was kind of this article expressing concern for cleaning protocols, where they realized, man, a lot of the bacteria, fungus, things of that nature that are in a medical suite or whatever are actually hiding in cracks and crevices where no one ever
absolutely.
even thinks to wipe.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Think of an operating table and the little. It's like a little 3-inch mattress kind of type deal pad that they lay the patient on.
Yeah.
Well, that thing has sewing, and kind of a.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be sewed shut from
so-
the pad
yeah.
inside.
With little grooves and stuff.
Little
right?
grooves. Bacteria is going to harbor in places like that.
Oh yeah.
Think of all the little nooks and crannies on an operating table.
Yeah.
It should scare us all to death.
Yeah.
And then when you start realizing that, man, bacteria multiplies, it becomes exponential. How
Mhm.
fast it multiplies in just a few hours.
Yeah.
Then you can. I mean, it's no wonder people get MRSA.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I think that's where the real value in something where it's something like what we focus on, where it's fumigation is not the right word. I don't think it fits perfectly, but where you create some kind of positive pressure, a vapor that pushes into all those cracks, crevices.
Push, yeah. And that's basically what we took is a process that should be perfect for a medical setting, and we built it out to where it can be applied in a residential setting pretty quickly.
Yeah. Actually, I'm just thinking of, this might be total tangent, but so you talked about the wiping. Well, actually, what were the other protocols? I don't know if you were going to go over some of those.
So it's kind of interesting. So the first thing, I actually found this in writing. The first thing you do is take a look at the surgical suite.
So survey
just take a look. Yeah.
Take a
Should
look.
not be too many surprises, but you never know.
Take a
You
look.
never know.
Survey, yeah, okay.
And then you're supposed to remove all the soiled items. So you're always going to have those gross,
Dirty,
disgusting red buckets. Remember those?
Yeah.
That had, and then, it was so bad. This is going to make everybody not ever want surgery again the rest of their life. But remember the room at the back of the surgical center?
Yeah, where all the clothes were?
Where they put the hazardous waste?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it just...
Oh, it stunk.
It reeked.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got to haul all of your stuff back to there. Now think about that. You're back in there dumping your soiled items, and then you're going to walk back into the room you're cleaning.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's microbes have landed on you back there.
Yeah.
Anyway, you remove all the soiled items. Then you collect all the linens. I don't remember that much.
Yeah, they usually did that
Yeah.
before you got there, yeah.
And then it says inspect the windows really well. And I'm assuming when they say inspect windows, the window sills themselves.
Looking for mold?
I don't think so. I don't know what they're looking for.
Oh.
It was just in this write-up I found, inspect windows.
Oh.
Like, yep, there's a window.
I mean, it makes sense.
No, what it is inspect the windows, make sure nobody is watching you. Not letting this sit for 10 minutes.
Yeah, because surgical suites don't even have... I don't think they have windows that open...
Yeah, no, they don't have windows that open, but they did have windows out into the main hall, remember?
Yeah.
So you could go down the main hall and look into an operating room. Why you would ever want to do that, I have no idea. But
yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah. Okay, and then your next step, number 5, empty the trash, obviously. So you're trying to get all the dirty stuff first.
Yeah.
Up to that point. And then you disinfect the trash cans. Makes sense. And then you start going through and cleaning and disinfecting. So you're supposed to squirt, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then wipe it off.
Yeah.
All of your low-touch items first.
Yeah.
And then your high-touch items next. And then, of course, you need to sweep the floor
Mm-hmm.
to get the dust out of there, and you had to move the operating table,
Mm-hmm.
right, to make sure you clean under there, and then you had to mop the floor, and they actually nowadays they are using microfiber mops.
Are they?
We had just those terrible
Yeah.
stringy mops
Yeah,
before.
they still are pretty prevalent.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then of course once you mop the floor, you had to move the operating table again to make sure you
Yeah.
mop under there as well,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course you throw away everything you used or throw it into the to go to the laundry, and then just visually inspect to make sure you didn't miss anything, which that should scare you too. If the procedures are that good, then you shouldn't miss anything, right?
Yeah.
Just let me take one last look to make sure I got all the gross things taken care of.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not a great system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weaknesses.
A lot of weaknesses. And you've talked
Yeah.
about this too. I mean, not that under the surgery table is getting dirty that regularly, but I mean, there's all kinds of things under
Oh, yeah.
that no one's ever wiping.
Or
know,
even
on the side
you
or-
know, remember the big operating lamps
Yeah.
above the operating table?
Oh yeah.
And they actually have 2 handles on them, and they would cover those handles with plastic.
Yeah.
And I think it was designed that between each operation, the plastic would come off. They put new ones on.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that is adhered to, but I saw some pretty dusty lamps
Yeah.
right above the operating table.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That dust falling into the.
And that's where microbes like to hang
Yeah,
out, right?
right.
Dust. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and because this is mold matters, and I'm kind of tying it in with mold here. Is you've had these conversations? I've been part of these conversations where you talk to hospital, I don't know, administrators or just hospital people,
Yeah.
and there's this denial because if word gets out that there's mold in a hospital or a medical or a surgical
it's
center,
big trouble.
yeah, I mean, it could shut them down. It could ruin their reputation. So
Yeah.
they don't even use that word.
No.
They won't if you're going to work in their facility, I'm pretty sure they make you, I don't know if it's contractual, but they don't let you tell people you're working
No, in fact,
that
I
facility.
was out of state a few weeks ago, and it was a company that uses our process, but they're also a full-fledged mold remediator.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they do dry out
Traditional,
and
yeah.
tear out, but they love our system as well, so they just added it to their system.
Yeah.
But they had a hospital under contract, and a couple of the employees during lunch, we were at a restaurant in town. Actually, it was a great restaurant. Remind me to tell you about it later.
Okay.
Great. Anyway, one of the employees started talking about the mold situation in the hospital, and the supervisor of the group, he said, "Hey, this has to stop right now. We cannot talk about this in a public setting." That's how, I mean, they were, I mean, I was impressed with him because he's
Yeah.
right. You shouldn't talk about
Yeah.
other people's
Oh, yeah.
places, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big deal if it gets out that a hospital has any kind of a C. diff or
Yeah.
MRSA or fungal
Or yeah.
situation. It's devastating.
Yeah. They keep it under wraps,
Yeah.
which kind of makes me surprised. It's very serendipitous that things didn't take off in the medical world, because then it led to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
In
And I'm
mold.
actually I'm glad we ended up where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. That's what I was going to say. But at the same time, you look back and you think, what, if they're so worried about MRSA, C. diff, why wouldn't they look into some of these technologies that are a little more comprehensive?
It was one of the most disheartening times of my life,
Really?
because I knew that this needs to happen, and every operating room in the entire nation should be fogged
Mm-hmm.
every night at least, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just seems that's a no-brainer,
Yeah.
and couldn't get anybody to say. I had a ton of hospital administrators say, yeah, it's a really good idea,
Yeah.
and I also had the same guy say, but we're not going to pay for it.
Yeah. Which, I don't know.
And it really comes down to if he went to the hospital and got MRSA,
Yeah.
the hospital's not going to lose money because you got MRSA.
Yeah.
It's just not going to
They're
happen.
going to make money.
Right.
Probably.
And I've often said it, I don't think they're evil and they don't want to make you sick so they can charge more.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to every hospital or every surgical center has somebody in charge of, they have a CFO, Chief Financial Officer. That guy has to put pencil to paper and say, does this make sense?
Yeah.
And currently, the way the legislation is written, if somebody tries to litigate towards the hospital can simply say, you could have got that anywhere.
Yeah, and it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. There's just
And so, yeah,
no.
unless things change, and a few people have told me they have changed recently, and I haven't really dove into it because we've been so busy with the mold thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are companies that build fog machines just for
Yeah.
an operating room.
Yeah, and we were just looking at
Yeah.
some. Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if it's on the rise or not, but
I think it will be. I think it has to be.
well, when you and I, we'll talk about this. I think we're going to do another podcast on our lab experience that we did
Yeah.
last week. We were in a kind of a test laboratory that does testing for, well, anyone who wants EPA labeling, for example, on their product. They've
Probably
gotta-
goes through this lab.
Yeah, probably this or similar type labs. So Mike and I spent a
Yeah.
week there, but it was interesting after, we did some fogging and some things with microbes in a fairly sizable room with tall ceilings. It's actually the only lab in the country that does test
Whole real life setting, whole
Yeah.
room. Yeah.
life type setting with aerosols, like with aerosolized microbes, bacterias, molds and stuff like that. But after every night, they do a cycle of kind of a hydrogen peroxide
Right.
disinfection cycle where they essentially fumigate that space, and that's how they keep their facility
Yeah.
very pristine.
And
So,
that's actually that room was stark empty.
yeah, nothing in there. Yeah,
Yeah. And they've
Walls and floor.
determined vapor is still the best way to do it.
yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah. It's so. Anyways, I think that's. Was there anything else you wanted to say on the kind of the hospital?
No,
or surgical center?
Yeah, no, I certainly don't mean to disparage anybody that works at a hospital. I think everybody's doing the best they can, but I do think that, man, we need to take a second look at how we clean surgical operating suites
Yeah,
in this country.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thanks for all your good insights, Mike, and thanks everyone for listening. Feel free to subscribe if you desire, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Mold Matters podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more in-depth information on mold illness and recovery.